করুণা প্রচুর জয়া নীলা প্রেম করুণা প্রচুর জয়া নীলা প্রেম ধন করুণা প্রচুর জয়া নীলা প্রেম ধন করুণা প্রচুর হে না প্রভু কোথা গেলা আচার্য ঠাকুর 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 তাহা মোর স্বরূপ রূপ কাহা সনাতন কাহা মোর স্বরূপ রূপ কাহা সনাতন কাহা দাস রঘুনাথ পতিত পাবন কাহা দাস রঘুনাথ পতিত পাবন কাহা দাস রঘুনাথ পতিত পাবন কাহা দাস রঘুনাথ পতিত কাহা মোর ভট্ট যোগ কাহা কবিরা কাহা মোর ভট্ট যোগ কাহা কবিরা এক কালে কোথায় গেলা গোরা নটরা এক কালে কোথায় গেলা গোরা নটরা এক কালে কোথা গেলা গোরা নটরা পাষাণে কোপিব মাথা অনলে পশিব পাষাণে কোপিব মাথা অনলে পশিব গৌরাঙ্গ গুণের নিধি কোথা গেলে পাব গৌরাঙ্গ গুণের নিধি কোথা কোথা গেলে পাব গৌরাঙ্গ সেসব সঙ্গীর সঙ্গে যে কইল বেলা 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 সে সঙ্গ না পাইয়া কান্দে নরোত্তম দাস সে সঙ্গ না পাইয়া কান্দে নরোত্তম দাস সে সঙ্গ না পাইয়া কান্দে নরোত্তম দাস সে সঙ্গ না পাইয়া কান্দে যে আনিল প্রেম ধন করুণা প্রচুর যে আনিল প্রেম ধন করুণা হে না প্রভু কোথা গেলা আচার্য ঠাকুর হে না প্রভু কোথা গেলা আচার্য ঠাকুর যে আনিল প্রেম ধন করুণা প্রচুর যে আনিল প্রেম ধন করুণা প্রচুর হে না প্রভু কোথা গেলা আচার্য ঠাকুর হে না প্রভু কোথা গেলা আচার্য ঠাকুর জয় বৈষ্ণব ঠাকুর বৈষ্ণব ঠাকুর বৈষ্ণব ঠাকুর জয় বৈষ্ণব ঠাকুর জয় বৈষ্ণব ঠাকুর বৈষ্ণব ঠাকুর জয় तमाल कृष्ण गोस्वामी महाराज वैष्णव ठाकुर तमाल कृष्ण गोस्वामी महाराज वैष्णव ठाकुर बोल हरे बोल हरे बोल हरे बोल
Hare Krishna. So, first of all, I am inviting and for His Holiness Bhakti Gaurav Narayan Swami Maharaj, Guru Maharaj, and all Prabhupada disciples and senior Vaishnavas and Vaishnavis. So all of us have been assembled here to celebrate the 23rd Disappearance Day of His Holiness Tamal Krishna Goswami, who is one of the very dearmost disciple of Srila Prabhupada. So this is almost 10:30 now. So as per the schedule, we are going to start the glorification. So first of all, I will like to request His Grace Mukunda Dat Prabhu, Srila Prabhupada disciple, to put his glorification of Tamal Krishna Goswami Maharaj.
Thank you. Om Jnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshuranmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangam Langhayate Girim Yat Kripatamaham Vande Shri Gurum Dinataranam. Vansha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah. Srila Prabhupada glorifies the character of the Vaishnavas in the Srimad Bhagavatam when Prahlad Maharaj and his associates are praying to Lord Narasimhadev. Swasti astu vishvasya khala prasidatam, etc. That devotees always pray that the entire universe will be auspicious, that the demons will be pacified, that everyone can think of each other's welfare, and that we can all enter more and more deeply into the spirit of unmotivated, pure devotional service. And from time to time, Krishna arranges for very, very great devotees like Srila Prabhupada to come into this world. And it's understood that when a king comes, he brings his retinue with him. So Srila Prabhupada, we all can understand that the mission of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and the mission of Srila Prabhupada in the modern world is not one man's work. So many are necessary there to assist. And Tamal Krishna Goswami was one of those eternal assistants of Srila Prabhupada, who really established ISKCON in a major way, particularly in North America, as we heard this morning from Basaki Mataji. Also in Europe and basically wherever he went, he would make the Sankirtana happen. And that required a tremendous amount of determination and great dedication to Srila Prabhupada's instructions. He was personified the spirit of a loyal disciple, and he trained up so many others to imbibe the same mood. It would seem that he had this innately from birth. It doesn't seem as if he was in need of being trained up at all, because as soon as he received the teachings that Srila Prabhupada was giving, he just immediately took it with an intrinsic understanding of what his duty was, what his identity was, what his karya was, what he had to do. So this is one of his great characteristics. I always say that he was like the living, breathing, walking manifestation of the Shvetashvatara Upanishad. Yasya deve parabhaktir yatha devi tatha gurau tasyaiteka tatha hirtaha prakashante mahatmanaha. And to those great personalities who have equal faith in both Krishna and the spiritual master, everything about the Vedic literatures is understood. And he really had that understanding. And that's why he took so naturally to Krishna consciousness. That's why he immediately became a leader in the Krishna consciousness movement. That's why Srila Prabhupada was so fond of him. And in many ways you can even say that Srila Prabhupada depended on him. We heard already that whenever anyone else could not get anything done, Tamal Krishna Goswami would not fail. That was his incredible determination. I had his association for many years, many decades, as a matter of fact. It's really only by his grace that I joined ISKCON. I can say that indirectly. I mean, actually all of us, practically. If it were not for Tamal Krishna Goswami, ISKCON would not have developed the way that it did. And had ISKCON not developed the way that it did, none of us would be here today. So we're all very much indebted. We will be hearing this morning some of his specific glories. Maybe I can share a few anecdotes from my own personal experience. I remember back in the 1980s, he wrote this book called Servant of the Servant, in which he gave his own, basically his own commentary on the letters that he received from Srila Prabhupada. When I say that he had an innate understanding of his own position and the significance of Srila Prabhupada's mission and his duty within it, this is what I'm talking about. He had the ability to see the significance of what Prabhupada was doing, to understand what he had to do in response to Prabhupada's instructions, and to take his part in history, which is what he did. So I first joined ISKCON in the mid-1970s, and Tamal Krishna Goswami played a part in that as well, because I was underage. I was not allowed to leave home. I was only 15. But I really, really wanted to join. Actually, from my birth, I always wanted to be a priest. But my parents could not guess which religion I would become a priest in. So anyway, somehow they were not letting me join the temple. Tamal Krishna Goswami and Rameshwar Swami had an argument about this. They often had arguments. But Tamal Krishna Goswami was saying that, look, he's very young, he doesn't know what he's doing, he's a liability for our movement, we're already in enough trouble because people are accusing us of kidnapping and brainwashing impressionable young teenagers. And that's exactly what he is. He can't join. Meanwhile, Rameshwar Swami would come back and say, no, he's a devotee, he's chanting 16 rounds, he's doing this for a long time, he's dedicated, I know him, because I was in Los Angeles in those days. So, anyway, somehow or other, he told me to come back the next day and we could discuss it. When I came back the next day, he didn't have time for me. I knocked at the door exactly at the appointed time, 12 noon. And anybody who knows Tamal Krishna Goswami knows that he was very, punctilious about this sort of thing. So, but they answered the door and I could see he was sitting across the room and he had a big tray of Mahaprasadam in front of him. That's another one of his delightful aspects. He was very, very fond of prasadam. He was fond of taking prasadam, he was fond of distributing prasadam. So he told me from across the room, he said, I know we had an appointment at this time, but Krishna has sent this Mahaprasadam and we cannot keep Krishna waiting. So I appreciated immediately. Here is a person who really, really appreciates prasadam. Anyway, then finally, somehow or other, it was worked out that I joined the temple. I wasn't allowed to do that, but I did. And where did I end up after I joined? On the Radha Damodar traveling Sankirtan party. Because again, Tamal Krishna Goswami came to where I was staying at that time, Gitanagari they call it now, in North America, Pennsylvania. And so anytime he saw any available brahmachari, I wasn't really doing much there, picking potatoes. But he decided to take me on the Radha Damodar traveling Sankirtan party. I'm so glad he did, because that kind of training we don't have nowadays. It was very, very austere, and exactly in the mood of tapasa brahmacharjena shemena cha ityadi. So we used to go on Sankirtana every day, and not here in India where sadhus are respected, but in America where people thought that we were crazy because no one had ever seen devotees before with bald heads, saffron blankets, and they didn't know what we were doing. They thought maybe we're sacrificing animals or even human beings. They just had no idea who we were and what we stood for. But somehow or other we were distributing books from 7 a.m. in the morning until 7 p.m. at night. I don't see people doing that now. But Srila Prabhupada inspired that kind of faith in his associates, of which Tamal Krishna Goswami was prominent, and Tamal Krishna Goswami also, in turn, through his transparency and his utter dedication to Srila Prabhupada, he also inspired that kind of devotion amongst all the members of the traveling Sankirtan party, Radha Damodar. I'll give you one example. He had an idiosyncrasy, personal idiosyncrasy. Whenever he would speak on the telephone, in those days we had telephones. There was no cell phones, nothing, internet. They had phones, public phones. Whenever he did that, he would cover it with his cloth and then speak into it because he didn't want to get sick. That might put him down for some time and hamper his service to Srila Prabhupada. And he was always concerned about accomplishing something practical, tangible for Srila Prabhupada, especially in the Sankirtana mission, Radha Damodar Traveling Sankirtan Party. He didn't want to lose even one day because he thought the book distribution scores would suffer as a result of that, and he didn't want that to happen. So he would cover the phones just so that he would not contact any germs whatsoever. He was like this. Now, I said this is an example of the respect that he commanded from his associates. The fact is that because he was doing that, every single brahmachari in that party was also doing the same thing. And however he dressed, however he acted, however he spoke even, they all did the same thing. That kind of faith was there in 1970s in ISKCON. And that kind of dedication was there. That kind of surrender was there. So it was inspired by people like Tamal Krishna Goswami, and we really, really miss him now. Although it's a fact that the spiritual master never departs if we ourselves don't depart from following his instructions. He's always with us. Firbi, Tamal Krishna Goswami told me once that even though the spiritual master's Vani is more important than his Vapu Sangha, but still I never lost any opportunity that I could possibly take to get Prabhupada's association. And it really shows. He just had such strong Guru Nishtha, that uncommon Guru Nishtha, that we should learn from him by studying his life, by reading his book, especially Servant of the Servant, I think is maybe the best one. She mentioned also the TKG diary. He published his own diary. He had the presence of mind to even keep a diary and the determination to keep a diary despite such tremendously challenging circumstances as 1977, late 1977 in Vrindavan. This was Tamal Krishna Goswami. And why did he do that? Because he was thinking about us. He knew in the future people will not get Srila Prabhupada's association. They will not know what happened here. They will not see what Prabhupada did, how he acted, and what an example he provided for the world, unless we record everything. So he was very particular about that. So he wrote that book also. He wrote Servant of the Servant, in which he, as I said, interprets all Srila Prabhupada's letters to him. We should be so thankful to him for these things, even if only for these things. Mumbai, he was also very instrumental in building that temple. Mayapur would not exist as we know it if it were not for him sleeping on top of a pile of bricks that were purchased to make sure that no one stole them. Because when you're an American in India, especially in 1970, whatever it was, you know, anybody's going to try to steal from you at every moment. Still, that's the fact. But especially in those days. So he was very, very, as I said, dedicated to Srila Prabhupada. He would not waste anything. He would not lose an opportunity to render service. He was very intense. Because he was so intense, it was often difficult for people to take his association, and he was a person who was extremely easy to envy also, because he was so far above everyone else, and so absolutely ideal in every way. You could not find a fault. But that's easy to envy, and so people did find fault nonetheless, because it's a fact. He was very driven, and he was very intense, very, very hard. They used to call him Hot Tamali, because it was very, very difficult to associate with him. Just as it was difficult to associate with Srila Prabhupada also. It was not easy to be Srila Prabhupada's personal servant. And Tamal Krishna Goswami did it for that entire last year. Of all times, what could be more challenging than that? He was there. He was taking care of, practically speaking, I remember, I observed, he was practically running the entire movement worldwide, single-handedly, because Prabhupada was at least physically incapacitated. So, and then immediately after Srila Prabhupada left this world also, he was thinking about how to benefit the devotees of ISKCON. He saw it as his responsibility, and Krishna reciprocated in so many ways. Anyway, these are the things about him that we should try to emulate, that we should respect, that we should praise and remember, especially on this day. And we should bow down at his lotus feet and beg for his blessings, because Charya Vaishnava Seva Nishtar Paitya Keva. You cannot get mercy of Krishna. Yasya prasadad bhagavat prasado. You get mercy of Krishna from mercy of the spiritual masters and from the Vaishnavas as well. So as I said in the beginning, Vansha kalpatarubhyascha. He's like a desire tree. Anything you want in spiritual life, you can get it by his blessings. And those blessings come very easily, because kripa sindhubhya evacha. He's also like multiple oceans of mercy. Patitanam pavanebhyo. He's a friend of those who are fallen, especially I know because I'm one of those fallen persons he showed kindness to. That's why I'm still here today, despite all my disqualifications. Vaishnavebhyo namo namah. So let us offer our respectful obeisances unto his lotus feet. Srila Tamal Krishna Goswami Gurudeva ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Go Premanande.
Thank you, Mukunda Prabhu, for your very nice glorification. So now I would like to request Prabhupada's disciple, Gada Braj Prabhu, please come to the dais and offer your offerings.
Prabhupada would say, bring Tamal and ask, what is your opinion? So one time we were at Rath Yatra, I don't even remember where, but Tamal Krishna played my kartals, and I still have them. I should have wrote it down. I forgot. This Radha Damodar traveling Sankirtan party was so ecstatic. Mukunda said it was austere. I thought it was opulent. But and all those, I know many Tamal Krishna's disciples, and they're all very nice. Like Nitai Gaur Sundar, the former president of Paris Temple. Many all over the world. They say you judge the guru by the disciple. So those disciples were very nice. I met many. So Tamal Krishna, he did a great service when anyone ever did what Prabhupada wanted, they were always victorious. Prabhupada wanted Tamal Krishna to go to China, but he didn't want to go to China. But he went, and he made disciples. And I met a lot of those Chinese disciples, and they're really nice. Sorry, I am a little bit overwhelmed by Mukunda's talk because he was bringing back the good old days. So they couldn't get the land for Mayapur, but Tamal Krishna went and got the signature. He got the signature and he brought it to Prabhupada. That was a great, you know the story. He stayed up at night waiting for him to come with the signature, with the land for that Mayapur. And those days, it was really special to associate with devotees like Tamal Krishna. He did so nice. Can't even explain it. Prabhupada said someday if we go back to Godhead, we'll all be together again. And we'll have you can imagine how ecstatic. All these devotees that we're missing so much, we'll all be able to catch up with them and be together forever. No more separation. No more vipralamba all the time. Suffering separation from these great devotees. So I was in New York Temple working for ISKCON Press, and Tamal Krishna borrowed me to work on buses. You remember Dial Chandra, Mukunda? So I was his helper. He was the mechanic fixing the buses. So I was his servant. Handed him wrenches. The buses were in Tampa, Florida, and we were fixing. It was very opulent. We had really good prasad. Remember, were you in Tampa? The mango trees used to grow on the street, and mangoes were right there, and nobody picked them. So we were picking the mangoes, eating mangoes. It was really hot, so you couldn't eat so much. We were eating a feast for us. Really nice devotees. One man had a big mango tree in his yard. We said, do you like, he said, well, I never ate. Imagine you had a mango tree and he never ate mangoes. And he let us have, and we took, there was many big mangoes. Had so much nectar. Are any of his direct disciples here? Raise your hand. Any of the Chinese disciples here? Because I saw that, met them, they were really nice. So I just watched this video of Krishna talking about who's God, or the Supreme God. And I remember watching that long time ago. That really impressed me because he's explaining, and they had so many ideas of who was God. Even they said Sai Baba, who we know is not God. And he explained it so nicely, so politely asking, what's your good name, sir? Teaching us how to be devotee and how to be proper. Also, he was sent to England to help there. He was very good at management, which we need. I mean, he managed Radha Damodar Traveling Sankirtan Party, and they did so many books. I don't know what to say. I'm becoming overwhelmed by separation. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Gadabharaj Prabhu, for your deep realizations you had with His Holiness Tamal Krishna Goswami. So now, since other guests have not yet arrived, so I will like to request the dearmost disciple of His Holiness Tamal Krishna Goswami and his very special and His Holiness Bhakti Gaurav Narayan Swami Guru Maharaj. So I will like to request Guru Maharaj to glorify His Holiness Tamal Krishna Goswami.
ॐ अज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। नमः विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले
Srimate Tamal Krishna Goswami iti namine. Namam Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale. Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami iti namine. Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharini. Nirvishesha Sanyavadi Paschatya Desatarini. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare, Hare Krishna 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare. So today is very auspicious day. Today is the Disappearance Day of Srila Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj and Rasagananda Prabhu, and also our dear Gurudev Srila Tamal Krishna Goswami Maharaj. So I met Srila Gurudev here in Vrindavan in 81. In the beginning of 82, I joined here in Vrindavan in 81, and I was very much impressed by seeing the video which you were seeing few hours before, gods, demigods and incarnations. And I was very much impressed by seeing this video. And I actually became attracted to Srila Gurudev by seeing this video. And later on, when I met with him in Mayapur, so that time Guru Maharaj was wearing one tabiz, what is a kavach, on his neck. So I had some impression about this kavach. I was thinking that generally in India people, they wear this kavach to get rid of some bad spirits and other things. So then I was thinking that Srila Gurudev was a pure devotee of Krishna. Then what was the need for him to wear this kavach? Krishna was always protecting his devotees. So that doubt was in my mind only, but I had not expressed to anyone. So one day I had gone to meet Srila Gurudev in Mayapur, and that was noon time, and after GBC meeting, Srila Gurudev was going to take bath in the Ganges every day at noon time after the GBC meeting. So on that day, he called me with him to go to the Ganges, and some of his god brothers were also going to Ganges to take a bath. So I held Gurudev's clothes, then I was walking behind him, then we went to the Ganges, and then in the Ganges there are Jayapataka Maharaj, Shivaram Maharaj, all these Maharajas were there. So Srila Gurudev also entered into Ganges water, and they had nice talk, and then I saw Guru Maharaj with Jayapataka Maharaj started swimming in the Ganges. And we know the flow of the Ganges is very swift in Mayapur. But still, Srila Gurudev was very good swimmer. I had never known. So he was swimming with Jayapataka Maharaj, and they are going in the middle of the Ganges. So then they came back, and the other God brothers were still taking bath. Then Gurudev wanted to come back early. So he came back from the water. Then he changed his clothes. And then we walked back to his room in the guest house. So Gurudev went inside to put his tilak. And I was waiting outside of the room in the at the secretary's desk. Then Gurudev called me from inside the room. So then when I went inside, so Gurudev said, go and call Sachidulal and you also come with him. So Sachidulal Prabhu was his servant at that time. So then I came back and called Sachidulal Prabhu, then we both went inside. And by that time, Srila Gurudev had already finished putting his tilak. Then he held that tabiz which he was wearing on his neck. He held that tabiz on his hand and showed us. And asked both of us, Sachidulal Prabhu and myself, do you know what is inside this kavach or tabiz, whatever you say? Then we both said, we don't know what is inside. And factually, I had that doubt also in my mind. So then, Guru Maharaj opened that kavach, and then he showed to us. And we saw something white inside that kavach. Then he again asked us, do you know what is inside? While he was showing us, then we could not figure it out what was inside. Then we said, no, we don't know. Then he told us that you don't tell to my God brothers, they will become envious of me. So this is the truth of Srila Prabhupada. He showed us, then closed the covers, then told us, okay, now you go back. And I was very much surprised because I had this doubt to know what was inside. And that was Prabhupada's truth. Srila Gurudev had collected Prabhupada's truth and kept in that covers and wearing on his neck. Then both of us, Sachidulal Prabhu and myself, we both came out from the room. And then I told Sachidulal Prabhu that, Prabhuji, you know, I had a doubt about this covers. I did not know what was inside. So I was thinking what was inside and why Gurudev was wearing. But how Gurudev knew my mind, I was asking him. That he called us and then he showed the Prabhupada's truth inside. And I have never told anyone about this thing, about my doubt. Then Sachidulal Prabhu told me that I had also the same doubt. And I had also not told anyone. So then I realized that how the spiritual master Guru knows the heart of the disciple. And because he is representing Paramatma, so he knows the heart of the disciple. And though we have never expressed, both of us, Sachidulal Prabhu and myself, we had never expressed or doubt to anyone. But Srila Gurudev called both of us and clarified our doubt in one stroke. So then my faith in him increased more and more. And then another time, I was serving Srila Gurudev here in Vrindavan. And then we all know that Srila Gurudev was very particular in prasad serving. Because Srila Prabhupada has taught him how to serve prasadam. So Srila Gurudev was also, by his mercy, he was allowing us to serve prasadam to him. And when Srila Gurudev would eat, he would not eat alone. Every time he would call some of his god brothers who would be in Vrindavan at that time to accompany him for prasadam. So some of his god brothers were also there, and if any disciple serving prasadam made any mistake, he would chastise right there in front of everyone. To teach the disciple, he would do that. And that's why some of the disciples, they were very afraid of him to serve prasadam. So when I was serving prasadam, some mistake was done by me because we did not know the sequence of serving different items. So Gurudev chastised me also in front of everyone. And then prasadam was over. Gurudev went back to his room to take rest. But before taking rest, he asked another of my god brother that whether Governor has taken prasadam or not. So that god brother went, and because that day I had not taken prasadam, I had some problem, stomach problem. So generally after Guru Maharaj takes prasadam, then we used to take prasadam. So that day I did not take. Then Guru Maharaj asked that devotee that whether Governor took prasadam or not. Then he said, no, he has not taken. Then Guru Maharaj immediately called me. So he was thinking about me because he had chastised me. So what was, how did I take that chastisement? How was I thinking? He was also thinking in that. So he called me and then he asked me, did you take prasadam? I said, Guru Maharaj, no, I have not taken. Then he asked, why? Why you have not taken? Then I said, I have some stomach problem, that's why I have not taken. Then he said, okay. Then he said, okay, you go back. So he wanted to make it sure that I was not taking prasadam because of his chastisement. That he wanted to know. That's why he was very concerned about the disciple. Even if Guru has to do this thing, this is actually a thankless task to teach the disciples. Disciples would make many mistakes, and Guru has to sometimes chastise them to teach them. Because what happens when I was also thinking that when we make any mistake and Guru Maharaj chastises us, so I was thinking that what is the need of chastisement? Guru Maharaj simply can tell us that you don't do this, you do this way. Simply he would have told us. Then one day I had one lecture. Guru Maharaj was speaking about Prabhupada and how Prabhupada was chastising the disciples to teach them. Guru Maharaj was describing about that. So then I understood that Guru Maharaj learned this thing from Srila Prabhupada. Prabhupada was chastising his disciples to correct them. So Guru Maharaj, same way, he was also chastising us to correct us. And then in another day, I had some realization about one of my disciples. That was in Govardhan. We are doing, after Tulsi Arati, we are doing Tulsi Parikrama. And that disciple, while doing Parikrama, his body was touching Tulsi Maharani. And the disciple, he did not realize or he did not know. And I was walking behind him. So I saw this, his body is touching Tulsi Maharani. Then I told him silently that your body is touching Tulsi Maharani, be careful. I told him nicely. Then I was expecting that when taking another round, his body would not touch. But the same thing again happened. His body again touched Tulsi Maharani's branches. So then I realized why Guru Maharaj was chastising us. So to tell a disciple nicely, he will not remember. He will not take it seriously. And the proof is this disciple, I told him nicely to stay away from Tulsi Maharani, his body would not touch Tulsi Maharani. But again, he was doing the same mistake. So I took him aside, then with raised voice, I chastised him to be careful not to touch Tulsi Maharani. And then when I chastised him, then next time he was okay. He was working nicely, his body was not touching. So I realized that how chastisement is necessary for the disciples to teach them. And Guru Maharaj was personally trained by Srila Prabhupada. That's why he was doing the same thing with disciples, to teach them. Another time, that was in Bombay, and generally we think when we get a new cloth from the market, generally in India, generally we think it is pure. When you get new cloth, we think it is pure. But one time Guru Maharaj was in Bombay. He was coming to Bombay, then I had purchased 2 bed sheets for him. One bed sheet was washed, another was just new, fresh, not washed. So to prepare Guru Maharaj's bed, I told one devotee to put the bed sheet, but he put the new bed sheet on his bed, which was not washed. Then when Guru Maharaj went to take rest, he saw the new bed sheet on his bed. Then he called me. And then he asked me that how cloth is purified. He was not talking about bed sheet. He was asking me how cloth is purified. Then I told, by washing cloth is purified. Then he showed me the bed sheet. He said, is it washed? Then I saw that that devotee has put the new bed sheet. Then I told Guru Maharaj, this is new and that devotee has put this by mistake. I have kept a washed one for you. Then I personally changed that bed sheet and put the washed one. So I was thinking that time that how Srila Prabhupada has trained his disciples. And all these details of Vedic culture. In India, many people don't know that when you purchase a new cloth, then you have to first wash it and then wear or use. In India, people don't know. But Srila Prabhupada has taught the disciples and Guru Maharaj. He was very particular in all these things. And actually, I learned from Guru Maharaj this thing. That new clothes have to be washed before use. So, another time, that was in Vrindavan, I was serving Guru Maharaj, and after Vrindavan, Guru Maharaj was supposed to go to Mayapur. And I was supposed to go before Guru Maharaj to prepare his room at Mayapur. And then before leaving for Mayapur, I went to Guru Maharaj and paid my obeisances and asked forgiveness from him. I told him that Guru Maharaj, while serving you, I have committed many mistakes. Please forgive me. Then Guru Maharaj told me that you cannot commit any mistakes. Or you cannot commit any offense. If by chastising you, I have committed any offense, please forgive me. So this was the humility Srila Gurudev was showing in front of a disciple. And when I heard that from Guru Maharaj's mouth, tears rolled down from my eyes. That how Srila Gurudev was so humble. Though outwardly everyone knows he is very heavy, but within his heart he was so humble. His heart was just like a soft rose. So for teaching disciples or teaching devotees, sometimes he would become heavy. But his heart was always very soft and compassionate. And then I realized that how Guru Maharaj was thinking always about the disciples and other devotees, and how he could help them to make advancement in spiritual life. He was always concerned about that. That's why one time he told me that I am not interested to accept many disciples. I can only accept those many disciples whom I can really take care of. And that he did. He was not after disciples, but he was always thinking how to train up the disciples, they can become good devotees of Krishna and become an asset in the mission of Srila Prabhupada. Another time in Govardhan, that was when we got that Govardhan palace. So Guru Maharaj sent me there to take care of that place. And when we went there was no facility there. The building was in a dilapidated condition. There was no water, no electricity, no room to stay. And there was bushes outside of the building, inside the building, and snakes were everywhere. So in that condition, we went there to take care of that property. And we arrived there in the evening to take the possession, then came back to Vrindavan to take our belongings. Then again went back around 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night. It was all dark, no electricity. And we entered in a room which was full of dust, and we did not know what was inside that room. Any animals, serpents or whatever. We just put our mat and we slept. And in the morning we got up, there was no water to even wash our face. So in that condition, we lived there. And next morning, Guru Maharaj arrived there. And he took me around and showed me what to do in the garden, what to do for the building. He instructed me. So then after that, he was supposed to go to Mayapur for GBC meeting. And he told me, you get this place ready. After GBC meeting, I will come back. So that was a very difficult task for me to get that place at least ready for Guru Maharaj. But that was also not up to the standard for Guru Maharaj. But somehow or other, with that simple standard, Guru Maharaj loved to stay there in Govardhan. Some of you might have seen also the picture where Guru Maharaj is sitting on a mat on the roof of Govardhan building, and he was chanting his japa in complete absorption, facing towards Giriraj Govardhan. He loved that place and he wanted to do his bhajan there. So one time, Guru Maharaj told me to take him to Rasasthali. And that time we had no vehicle in Govardhan. We had only one scooter Guru Maharaj told me to purchase, because I was coming every day from Govardhan to Mathura for some work, official work, because when we took the possession of that property in Govardhan, there was a school which was occupying 3/4 of that building. We were only in possession of 1/4 of that building. So I was going every day to Mathura. Every morning I will go, whole day I will stay in the offices, come back in the evening. That was my duty, to vacate that school from that place. So Guru Maharaj, that's why I was traveling in public transport. So Guru Maharaj, out of his mercy, told me to purchase a scooter so I can use that for traveling. So Guru Maharaj told me that you take me to Rasasthali. And we had that scooter only there. So after morning breakfast, Guru Maharaj sat in scooter's back and I was driving the scooter, took him to Rasasthali. And after we got down at Rasasthali, Guru Maharaj told me that you go back to the ashram. Then I asked Guru Maharaj, how you will come back to ashram? Then he said, you don't worry, I will come back. Then I have to come back with the scooter. And Guru Maharaj went there to do his bhajan alone. And that time Rasasthali was a very nice place, full of trees, bushes, and very solitary place. So Guru Maharaj stayed there. I came back to the ashram. Then it was around 12:30, 1 o'clock. Prasad was ready, lunch was ready for Guru Maharaj. And Guru Maharaj did not come back by that time. So I was going to the roof of the building and watching towards the road that whether Guru Maharaj was coming back or not. I did not see him. Then I was thinking that the time is passing by, his lunch time is passing by. So I came down, then went to the road to see if Guru Maharaj was coming. Then to my surprise, I saw one tractor was coming on the road and it was passing in front of our main gate, and some people were sitting in the back of the tractor. Then the tractor stopped after our main gate. When the tractor stopped, then I looked at this tractor. Then I saw Guru Maharaj was coming down from the tractor. He was standing behind the tractor. He was not even sitting. Like the Brajvasis, they sometimes travel. Some people, they sit in the back of the tractor. Some people stand also in the back. He was standing in the back of the tractor. So then he came down. Then I saw Guru Maharaj. I smiled. Then Guru Maharaj also smiled, seeing me. Then we came to the ashram. Then Guru Maharaj took prasadam. But then I realized how Guru Maharaj was very simple at heart. He wanted to become like Brajvasis. He had this Brajabhav within his heart. Though he was traveling all around the world, preaching Krishna consciousness, but his heart was in Vrindavan. And he always wanted to become a Brajvasi. That's why when he was coming to Braja, he was living in a very simple way. We see in Vrindavan his room, very small room. I was showing to some of our disciples. Guru Maharaj was staying in that room, very small room, without AC, without cooler. He was staying in that room. So, that time when Guru Maharaj was in Govardhan, so that time when he had gone from here, he had rented a taxi. So while coming back, I was going to arrange a taxi for Guru Maharaj to come back to Vrindavan. Then Guru Maharaj said, don't arrange any taxi for me. Then I asked Guru Maharaj, how would you go back to Vrindavan? Then he said that I will go by public transport. So then I told Guru Maharaj, public transport is very crowded. Because I used to travel by public transport. I know. And it's very crowded. You will not be able to even get a seat, proper seat to travel. Then he said, you don't worry. I will go by public transport. So then that time public transport means no bus. Only that big three-wheelers, tempo, that make a huge sound. That was the mode of transportation in Vrindavan. Vrindavan, Govardhan, whole area. And the driver would make people sit. If there are 3 seats, he would put 4, 5 people in 3 seats. In that way, people travel in public transport. And I knew this thing that Guru Maharaj will be inconvenienced. So then I came with Guru Maharaj, and then I arranged a seat next to the driver in the front. Because in front seat, generally there is one seat next to the driver, but generally they put 2 persons in one seat. And in the back of the tempo, that is extremely crowded. So I went to the driver and I arranged that one seat next to the driver. But I know that he would put another person to get more money. So I gave Guru Maharaj fare plus another extra fare to that driver, so he would not put another person next to Guru Maharaj. And I told the driver that don't put anyone, and I am paying that money. What money you would get from putting another person, I am giving you. In that way, I sent Guru Maharaj from Govardhan to Vrindavan. So, how he was very simple and wanted to always remain simple like Brajvasis. And in that way he was living here. Though he was a great scholar and he was also doing his PhD, and he had written so many books on philosophy, and then on his diary also, Tikaji diary, Final Pastimes of Prabhupada. He has written so many dramas also. Final Pastimes of Prabhupada is a drama. First drama is Jagannath Priya Natakam. He had written Sanskrit drama in English language. Maybe that is the first drama, I think, in English with Sanskrit style. And then so many spiritual novels. Servant of the Servant is just like a novel. So, very inspiring books. And he was very good speaker also. We saw that in God's demigods and incarnations. So, in all respects, Srila Gurudev was fully trained up by Srila Prabhupada, and he also acted in that level to set the example for others, so others would be inspired to pursue Krishna consciousness according to Srila Prabhupada's standards. So on this day, we also know that Srila Gurudev, how he left his body in Mayapur Dham, and Srila Prabhupada says in Bhagavad Gita in one purport, 8th chapter, last verse purport, that whether one leaves his body in a normal way or by accident, if it does not matter what way one leaves the body, but what consciousness he has at the time of leaving the body. That is very important. And Srila Gurudev was, when that accident happened, he was chanting. Chanting his rounds, and we saw that his body was completely intact. Only his backside of the brain, it was hit by that seat of that vehicle. And there are some scars and some blood was coming only here in this left hand. And whole body, face, everything was intact. So, we can assume that Srila Gurudev was chanting, and in that state he left his body, went back to Srila Prabhupada, to the spiritual world, to help Srila Prabhupada and serve Krishna. So on this day we pray at his lotus feet to bestow his mercy on us, by which we can get a little bit of his dedication and devotion to Srila Prabhupada and to Lord Krishna. Then our life will become successful. Hare Krishna. Jai Srila Gurudeva ki.
Thank you, Srila Gurudev, for a very deep and elaborate sharing of your realizations. So now many guests have already arrived. So I will request the speakers, because we have to wind up around 1 o'clock. We are planning to do the Puspanjali and Arati. So accordingly, can cut short your glorification. So now I would like to request Srila Prabhupada's disciple, her guest, Satarupa Mataji. Please come forward and offer your offerings.
Hare Krishna. Thank you. This was a impromptu moment this morning. I wasn't prepared to speak. Does everyone here speak English? Yes. I mean, I knew Tamal Krishna Maharaj for many, many years. We were basically young children, teenage together. I met him first in 1973, and we served Prabhupada together. 75, 76, 77, off and on. But my relationship with him was before Prabhupada. I lived in Miami, and he used to come with the Radha Damodar bus to Coconut Grove every winter and stay in Miami. He and Vishnu Jan Maharaj and their brahmacharis. I'm from Key West, which is very near to Miami, about 150 miles, and he would like to go there. So I was actually the only woman that would travel on the Radha Damodar bus. At one point he said that I was the only lady who helped him preach. I used to take them down to Key West, and they would stay there at my family's home. They're outside and shower inside, and they would take care of Radha Damodar. I would buy all the boga. We'd go to the beach, and the boys would cook. And in the evening, we'd go to the sunset. And I would sit at the book table, and Goswami Maharaj would preach, and Vishnu Jan Maharaj would sing the bhajans, and the boys would distribute the books. And then after the program was over, we used to, the three of us, Vishnu Jan Maharaj, Tamal Krishna Maharaj, and myself, would walk on the pier and talk, and then we'd go back. In the morning, they would have Mangalartik, and I would stand outside the bus. I didn't go on the bus. And Vishnu Jan Maharaj would give me the garlands from Radha Damodar, and I'd give them to my father and tell them that I made them for him, and he'd wear them to work every day. So we had this relationship over the years. Like I said, it was like brother and sister. It was sweet, and also at times rough. There were times when he wanted me near Prabhupada, and there were times he didn't want me near Prabhupada. And so I know once in Dallas, he had me come to Dallas after Prabhupada left, and he said to me one day, we were talking, he said, all these years I thought it was Palika. He said, but it was actually you. He said, you're the boldest woman I ever met. And I said, Goswami Maharaj, if I wasn't, you would have never let me near Prabhupada. I said, you fought me every which way. And he actually went red from the back of his shoulders, neck, around his head to his face. Because he knew it was true. If he came here, I'd go there. If he came here, we would do this like weaving around Prabhupada. Sometimes he wanted me, sometimes he didn't. There was, let me think of another time. So through the Prabhupada years, it was very wonderful, like I said, very sweet. And I also flew with them when we went to London with Goswami Maharaj, Abhiram, and Upendra, and myself. We flew to Prabhupada's last trip. And, but before that, actually, I have a funny story. When we were leaving Mayapur in '77, Prabhupada's last trip, from leaving Mayapur to Calcutta, he'd always stop in the mango grove to take breakfast or lunch. And this was one of the times where he was fighting me. He got to one point where he said that he only wanted me to teach. He didn't want me to touch. So I was teaching Navyogendra Maharaj actually how to cook and to serve Prabhupada. And so we were at the mango grove and I couldn't find Maharaj anywhere. And so Prabhupada's sitting there waiting, so I started serving. And I knew that Goswami Maharaj was watching me, so I was really nervous. And so, but I put Prabhupada's breakfast in front of him, and then there was all the sannyasis. There was probably about 7, 8, or 9 lined up, and then I was to serve them. And so we had this brother-sister, push and shove relationship, at the same time also very sweet. So it was funny from my point of view, but so they were sitting there, and there was Jayapataka Maharaj first, and I served, and then there was Goswami Maharaj, and it was sweet rice at that point. And so I was already in motion, and he put his hand out like that to say he didn't want it, but I had already went like that, and it plopped, and it was dripping through his hand, and I didn't even look. I just went on to the next, but I knew he was fuming. But that was the kind of the rasa that we had back and forth. And then after Prabhupada left, he actually, like I said, asked me to move to Dallas, but he saw me in Los Angeles. And he gave class that day, and then after class, I went back to my apartment a few blocks away, and there was a knock at my door. It was a brahmachari, and he said, Tamal Krishna Maharaj wants to see you. So I was like, okay. So I went over to the temple, and he was staying in one of the quarters, and I knocked. And actually, I hadn't seen him since we were with Prabhupada in London. And when I looked at him, I actually couldn't. I started to cry, and I just put up my hand. It said, seeing you took me back. And he said the same thing. When I saw you, it took me back also. He said, so I was thinking that you would cook for me today. And I already knew there was a god sister of mine who was far superior cook than I, and I knew she was planning on cooking for him. And I said, oh, so-and-so wants to cook for you today, and she's a far superior cook. And he looked at me and he said, that may be. He said, but I want to taste the taste that you created when you cooked for Prabhupada. He said, that is superior. And so, of course, that was his kindness, and that's when our sweet relationship began after Prabhupada left. We had given up that push and shove, and now it was the sweet churning of memories of serving Prabhupada together. So, of course, she was standing outside the door, and she's like, what did he say? And I said, oh, he wants you to make this, and I'll make that, and, we'll do it together. So, anyway, that was like that. And then very shortly after that, he asked me to move to Dallas, and I was his cook in Dallas, when he was there. But he started to shift in many, many ways. He was always known to be very, very intense. Prabhupada said this spot on his head meant intensity. He had this intensity, and but at that point he started, making a lot of disciples of the householders, and he was encouraging the householders to get jobs and work and support their families, and this was new to ISKCON really at the time. And so he was being criticized a lot for this. And he had a GBC meeting there, and I was living, I think I was already back in Florida by then, so he asked me to come and cook for this meeting. And like he said, attention to detail, gifts. He had everyone that was arriving a gift basket and sweets in their room when they were picked up. He was very attention to detail to everybody's comfort. And I remember Bhakti Maharaj was there, and he made a joke. He said, yeah, he's the guru of etiquette. I am the guru that would teach you how to eat and sleep. Because he was very much into eating and your health and your care. So he was joking like that. So that was kind of his nature. And then just a little history. When we did move back to Florida, he would come and stay with us, and he wrote actually Jagannath Priya Natakam, visiting us. He would come for weeks and a couple months at a time and stay with us in the Keys. And then we actually sponsored the play in Mayapur, the Jagannath Priya Natakam. But I don't know, a couple stories. When we were in London, he asked me to go to pick up some sunglasses for Prabhupada, because Prabhupada's eyes were bothering him very badly. Even inside, the lights would hurt his eyes. So I spent all day in London. We left at 7 in the morning, and by 5 o'clock I hadn't found the sunglasses yet. You know, I felt it a very difficult task, because sunglasses are almost like an alter ego. You know, people wear these sunglasses and they look so cool and this and that. So I was trying to find something very dignified that wouldn't be offensive on Prabhupada's face. So I really couldn't. I went all day, and 5 o'clock came, they were getting ready to close. And I remember this tall gentleman in the eyeglass shop, and I described to him what I thought I was looking for, you know, something very dignified. And he said, you know, I think I might have something in the back room, what you're describing. So he went, and I'm telling you, he was coming back out, maybe from the door to where he's coming in, and he was holding him in his hand, and I just went, yes, that's what I want. That's exactly it. So I could tell, and so I put them on. I looked in the mirror, and of course they were the most expensive sunglasses in the whole shop, because that's the way my eye would go. So I took them. We got back like at 7 o'clock, and by then Prabhupada was already resting. So I went into Goswami Maharaja's room, and I said, this is what I found. And he was like, and he put them on. He put his face under the lamp and turned on the lamp and was like, and I said, okay, you figure it out. This is what I got. So the next morning, Prabhupada was going to go down to greet the deities, and Prabhupada had him in a chair where they carried him in his palanquin chair. Goswami Maharaj put the glasses on him. Prabhupada didn't say anything. And so then Tamal Krishna Maharaj said, Srila Prabhupada, if they're not suitable, they can be returned. Prabhupada didn't say anything. And then Abhiram, my husband, at that time was standing next to him. He said, Prabhupada, my wife is given. Prabhupada went, oh. He said, if she is given, I must accept. And then Tamal Krishna Maharaj said, no, Prabhupada, she can take them back if they're not suitable. And he said, no, she very much wants to serve me. Tell her thank you and be blessed. Every day I would pray to Prabhupada how much I wanted to serve him, but I never wrote to him, I never told him, but I would pray every day, and the tears would come every day. So when I was told that Prabhupada said that, knowing my heart, I stopped that intensity of prayer, begging and begging and begging, please Prabhupada, don't kick me away, please Prabhupada, let me be near you, please Prabhupada, let me serve you. And the tears would come every day, and because I realized at that point, you could see that Prabhupada was not going to be here so much longer, and everybody from around the world was coming, all the sannyasis. So being in the position I was in, and Prabhupada wasn't eating, he didn't have so much appetite. There was very little that I was, could really be doing. So once I heard what Prabhupada said, no, she very much wants to serve me, I stopped praying in that mood because my heart was pacified. But every day I shifted the prayer, and it was the same feeling, the same intensity, and the same tears would come every day. But I began to pray, Prabhupada, if I can't be near you, please bless me that I'll always feel your presence near me. And that was every day. And so I feel that prayer is a very important part of our sadhana, our meditation, our bhajan, to connect with the spiritual master, Paramatma in the heart. And for you all, the Prabhupada would say that the grandfather is more merciful than the father. He said that we should pray to the grandfather, we should pray to Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, because he'll be more merciful. So you have the great instruction and kindness that Prabhupada, your grandfather, will be very kind to you and bless you with service and devotion. And just one last other thing, the house that is now, the house that you all have there used to be Vishwambar Lal. It was actually our house. We sold it to Tamal Krishna Maharaj. We had that, and at some point we needed some money and wasn't coming to... We bought that house from Vishwambar, Prabhupada's dear friend in Vrindavan. And of course, because we were so close with Tamal Krishna Maharaj, he knew what was going on in our life, so he wanted it. So that's how it's in your hands now, is that that Abhiram made it where Goswami Maharaj could take over that house. I could go on so many stories, but so many others are here to speak. I just wanted to honor him today and tell you all what a wonderful, wonderful guru that you had. He was very dear to me. He left way too soon. So many days, just a few days ago, I was thinking, why did you leave? Why did you leave? Especially when we need you now so much. Nobody spent as much time with Prabhupada as he did. And you can say so many things, but his love for Prabhupada was so great, I can't even describe to you. He loved Prabhupada with every breath he took. So, thank you for allowing me to say some words today, and appreciate it, and wish you all the best in your devotion and to your prayers to your Guru Maharaj and here. So, Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Sruti-Rupa Mataji. So now I would like to request His Grace Basaki Prabhu. Please come onto the dais and give your offering.
Namayom Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Sri Mate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvisesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Sri Vasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So I just want to begin by thanking Shruti Rupa Mataji for such a wonderful offering from her heart. And she was saying that Prabhupada had expressed that the grandfather is more merciful to the children than the father. So Prabhupada spoke that on February the 9th in Los Angeles. How do I know? Because I was there. Tamal Krishna Maharaj was also there. That was the first time I met Tamal Krishna Maharaj. In February the 9th, 1975, he had come with Vishnujan Swami to meet with Prabhupada because Prabhupada had just arrived from Hawaii to Los Angeles. So in those days, whenever Prabhupada would come to a temple, everybody would go. So that evening, Prabhupada gave a talk, and he said that the grandfather is more kind to the children than the father. Therefore, my Guru Maharaj, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, will be more kind to you than to me. That's what Prabhupada said. So now Prabhupada is your grandfather. So he will be more kind to you than to us, his direct disciples, because the grandfather is more kind to the children than the father. And how do we know? Because after Prabhupada left, the new devotees in ISKCON who never met Prabhupada, they did tremendous service and expanded the movement much more than had been done by Prabhupada's disciples. So how is that possible? Because they got that extra mercy from the grandfather. So you are so fortunate. Sometimes people say to me, oh, you were so fortunate. You were there when Prabhupada was there. You had so much association with him. And I always say, no, you're more fortunate because the grandfather is more merciful to the children than the father. So that was the first day I also met Vishnujan Maharaj and Tamal Krishna Maharaj. And that day in the morning after the class, because Prabhupada had arrived in the afternoon from Honolulu, so he only gave an evening talk. So in the morning after class, I was just finishing my rounds before breakfast in the Los Angeles temple when all of a sudden the doors opened and in walked two sannyasis. Now we had all heard that the Radha Damodar party was coming to Los Angeles. So when the doors opened and those two sannyasis walked in, the tall one, I thought, that's Vishnujan Maharaj. Then the shorter one with the glasses, I was thinking, that's Tamal Krishna Maharaj. He always wore glasses. So that was my first meeting with him. And then I had a lot of association with him in India, because not long after, in 75, I was transferred to India. And so most of my association with Tamal Krishna Maharaj has to do with cultural things. For example, he was a writer. And after he finished writing Jagannath Priya Natakam, he had come to India, and in Calcutta, he was arranging that different actors, Bengali actors, would perform his drama at the Mayapur festival that year. I forget what year it was. But so I was there and in the temple with Sarva Bhavana, my godbrother, and Tamal Krishna, and we were helping him. And he was expressing how difficult it was to work with these Indian actors because they weren't familiar with the bhava of portraying devotees or great saints or Vaishnavas. But he was the director. He was also the writer. He had written that book, and now he was directing the drama. You were there when that? Okay. So this is in Mayapur, that Mayapur festival, they presented that drama. So I just remember the frustration that Tamal Krishna was expressing working with these actors who were not really Vaishnavas. They were Indians, but they were not Vaishnavas, not surrendered to Krishna. Who knows who they were surrendered to. But he worked with them, and he worked tirelessly and got them to perform that Jagannath Priya Natakam, and they did a decent job because he was on them, made sure that they did it properly. So that was the first experience I had with him with his book, Jagannath Priya Natakam. I had another experience with him with his other book, which was the Srila Prabhupada Anjalila. Now when Srila Prabhupada had left his body, and I had heard on the phone, I had called one devotee and they said, have you heard? I said, what? we just heard that Prabhupada left his body, so I was in a state of shock. And I was on traveling Sankirtan, just book distribution. So I hung up the phone, what do I do now? And then I was thinking, well, Prabhupada would want me just to carry on. So I went and distributed books. But then he wrote Srila Prabhupada Anjalila, that drama, and I received that book. And that book had such a tremendous effect on me. It had more of an effect on me than actually hearing that Prabhupada had left. Because he brought that whole Leela to life, the way he described it. And it opened my heart, tears came to my eyes, I was so moved by it. And then later that year, this was back in America, he had arranged in Dallas a meeting with the God Brothers, so I had gone there. And it was a wonderful meeting. And then afterwards, there was going to be prasad distribution. So we were mingling about in his room, waiting for the prasadam to be served in his quarters there in the Dallas temple. So I thought, let me speak to him and tell him how much I appreciated his book, Srila Prabhupada Anjalila, how it had moved me so much, touched my heart so much. So I went up to him and I expressed that. And he said, he listened, he was very happy to hear that I have so much affected in a very spiritual way by that book. And then he asked me, what did you think about the last chapter? The last chapter, for those of you who have read the book, or who haven't read the book, was his understanding of what happened after Prabhupada left his body. Prabhupada's spirit soul had left the body. That's what he had written in the last chapter. So he asked me, what did you think of the last chapter? So I said, the last chapter, I thought it was Paramatma realized. He said, really? I said, yeah. When I read that, I thought it was Paramatma realized. And he, big smile came on his face, and he said, me too. He also felt it was Paramatma realized. And then I heard later on that some people had criticized him, that how do you know what happened after Prabhupada left his body, you know? So he was happy, very happy, big smile that I told him that I thought it was Paramatma realized, because I did think it was Paramatma realized when I was reading it. So that was my second experience with him with the books. And then my third experience with him with the book was when I was writing my own book, Sri Sri Radha Damodar Vilas. And I was writing about the pastimes of Radha Damodar and the Radha Damodar Traveling Sankirtan Party and all the devotees who had given their lives to spreading Krishna consciousness by the mercy of Radha Damodar. So I had, in total, I interviewed about 500 devotees. But on the Mayapur festival in 1993, I had only interviewed about 100 devotees, and I went to the festival because I knew there'd be a lot of devotees I could interview. And so then I went up to see Tamal Krishna Maharaj in his quarters, and I told him I was writing this book, Radha Damodar Vilas, you know, and I would like to interview you. He said, do you have an outline? I said, yes. I had it with me, so I gave him the outline. He looked at it, turned a few pages, then he said, this is the history of Sankirtan. I said, yeah, that's what it is, Radha Damodar. He said, how many people have you interviewed so far? I said, only about 100. Then he said, interview me last. He wouldn't give me an interview at that time. Interview me last. So, okay, you know, when Tamal Krishna Maharaj said something, you accepted it humbly. He was a powerful personality. Not only powerful, but he was very expert. after reading his books, I saw he was an expert writer. He was also an expert manager. He played mridanga very well. He led kirtans enthusiastically, and he preached and gave classes very expertly. So he was a very expert preacher, very expert devotee. So then I interviewed other devotees in Mayapur, and then in the next year, 1994, I came back again to interview him. I said, I've interviewed now almost 500 devotees. I've come back to get your interview. So then he gave me an interview. And by that time, I had interviewed almost 500 devotees, so I really knew the history of the Radha Damodar party. And I asked him, what happened when you were in New Orleans, and what happened there in Fort Lauderdale, and what happened here, and what happened there. And he was like amazed, wow, you really did your homework. So it was a very nice interview. Then subsequently, the book was published. And I was traveling and distributing the book. I had many orders. And then I came to Bhaktivedanta Manor. And at that time, this is now 1998 or 1999, and I knew that Tamal Krishna Maharaj was studying at Cambridge University. So I asked the devotees, do anybody have a phone number for him? So someone did. So I called him up, and his secretary answered. I said, Hare Krishna, this is Basaki Das. I would like to speak to Tamal Krishna Maharaj. He said, well, Tamal Krishna Maharaj is busy right now, and he's not speaking to anybody. So I said, well, I've just arrived in London. I'm at Bhaktivedanta Manor. Ask him when would be a good time to speak with him. So the secretary said, okay. And I waited. And then the secretary came back after a minute, and he said, he'll speak to you now. So I was on the phone with him, and I said, I came to London to give you a copy of the book that I interviewed you, so you're prominently in this book about Radha Damodar. He said to me, I already have a copy. I thought that was humorous because as soon as it came out, he wanted to find out how I had portrayed him. So he got a copy immediately. So then I said, oh, well, how did you like the way I portrayed you? He said, yeah, it was very good. And then there was one particular Leela where I had to express the emotion of Tamal Krishna Maharaj. So I said, that particular Leela where you left Vishnujan Maharaj and you went to see Prabhupada, how did I present that? Because I was trying to convey your mood and your feelings. And he said to me, it was right on the money. That's what he said, right on the money. So he liked it very much. And he told me, I'm just sharing this with you because he told it to me, not because I'm trying to present something else. But he told me, I only listened to two people, two kirtaniyas. I listened to Prabhupada and I listened to you. And he told me he really appreciated my kirtan, and that was very wonderful. And he appreciated my book, and I had appreciated his books, both his books that I read. I didn't read the other book about in Chinese devotee. I never read that book. But so we had a very sweet relationship of appreciation for each other's service. So my relationship with Tamal Krishna Maharaj was always sweet. Not everyone can say that. But I was very fortunate that I saw his sweet side, just like Shruti Rupa, she saw his sweet side also. Thank you very much. Srila Tamal Krishna Maharaj ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Gaur Premanandi Hari Hari Bol.
Thank you, Basaki Prabhu, for sharing so wonderfully your realizations. So now I will like to request Her Grace Manjari Mataji. Please come forward and put your offerings. Actually, we are also going short of time, so I will like to request to cut short your offering, to make it little brief, because so many other speakers are also there. Hare Krishna.
Om Gyana Tamirandasya Gyananjana Shlakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Mam Vishupadaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharane Nivishesha Shunyabadi Paschachadesha. Thank you so much for inviting me to speak. Anyway, I'll try to express as much as I can. The talk that Devi Shakti gave this morning was very beautiful, somewhat sanitized, but extremely facile. And it was very nice. I can't speak like she does. My association, there's one very wonderful story. I had the good fortune of being in Shanghai for a little while. And I met many of the devotees, the Chinese devotees. And their devotion to Tamal Krishna Maharaj was so strong and wonderful, and they told me many stories. One of the stories I was thinking of when Maharaj was speaking, how humble he was. He was speaking in a small group in an apartment, and somehow they got news that maybe the government would be coming, and he had to leave right away. And so he just picked up his briefcase only. He had his plane tickets, and he went out on the street. These devotees, they had no cars. He went out on the street, and he flagged down a truck. He got a truck to stop, and he boarded the truck and convinced the driver to take him to the airport. And in that way, he was able to leave the country without being intercepted by their authorities or police, whoever was supposed to come. But so bold, so brave. And he was preaching at such a great, actually danger at that time with the Chinese government. There's one story that when they were in Bombay, before they went, they had prepared a kind of dossier for Srila Prabhupada, explaining what the political situation was like in China. And there was Tamal Krishna Maharaj, Dristadumna Maharaj, and the devotee who prepared it. And I'm not sure what form it was, but there were many photographs, and it was some kind of book. And they were just with charts describing the authoritarian nature of the Chinese government and the atrocities that the government had committed to its people. And the devotee who compiled the book, at one point, Srila Prabhupada is looking at this and he's explaining. And at one point he says to Srila Prabhupada, right? These people are demons. And they should be killed. He's talking about the Chinese government. And Prabhupada looked at him and he said, this is the movement of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Mahaprabhu has appeared to kill the demoniac mentality. And then Prabhupada took a breath and he sat back and he said, one day Krishna disguised himself as Abhimanyu. And he went to Abhimanyu's home as him. And he told his mother, Jatila, he said, Krishna is coming disguised as me. You have to stop him. And so, meanwhile, Abhimanyu was coming up the road with the cows, and Jatila went out with a broom, and she was beating him, and he's saying, Mother, Mother, what are you doing? She's beating him, and they're running down the road. There's a picture of this in Nectar of Devotion. And Prabhupada, so this devotee has just explained about the Chinese government, and Prabhupada has said this about Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And then he tells this story, and the devotees are just looking at him. And Prabhupada was laughing at the story. And they weren't laughing. And he looked at them and he said, do you know this story? It's in my books. Read my books. So, this was the one thing that happened on their way to China. What Prabhupada was stressing. The movement of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And there's my own personal experience with Tamal Krishna Maharaj was a combination of, he's kind of a difficult personality. And I was really upset with him, and I didn't want to meet him at all. But a friend of mine, Karta, who was a good friend of his, very close to him, very dear to him, convinced me and also convinced him. And he invited, when I was in Oxford, he invited us, a group of us, to Cambridge. And I have to say, meeting with him was the most moving conversation I've ever had. And I developed deep appreciation for his dedication to Srila Prabhupada. And I think Devi Shakti talked about this, how Prabhupada trusted him how Prabhupada called him so many times. and I could see that. I really, the conversation we had was all about Srila Narayan Maharaj. And I don't think that this is really the forum for speaking about that. But it was wonderful. It was absolutely wonderful. And afterwards, afterwards we got into a big fight about something else. But anyway, besides that, there were some difficulties. We went back and forth. But in any case, these things, the main thing is his relationship with Srila Prabhupada and his determination to serve the mission of Srila Prabhupada. And, all the other small little disagreements we may have had, they're insignificant. And there's this verse, Yata yata gora padada vinda vindeta bhaktim krita punyarasi. This verse by Prabodhananda Saraswati. Yata yata krita punyarasi. Yato sarva. Let's see. It says that those who have great devotion to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and that those greatly pious people who have great devotion to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and I would say to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's greatest servant, Srila Prabhupada, that there is no doubt that automatically the lotus feet of Srimati Radhika spontaneously arise within the heart. And so this is how I think of Tamal Krishna Maharaj. So there's one thing I did a favor for him. And this was my last conversation with him. He was very happy that I did this favor. And he said, I would like to give you the best thing that I can. And so he said, go to Govardhan. And at Govardhan, at the palace, on the top, there's a small room. He said, I will arrange with Keshav Bharati that you can go there and sit in that room and chant japa. He said, this is the greatest gift that he's giving. It was so wonderful. We went and I think Maharaja explained how at the top of the palace there's this room, and you sit there and you have a view of Giriraj Govardhan. And this was his great enjoyment and his great service, and he wanted to share this. And so we were very fortunate that we were able to do that. And we're so grateful to him. He's great devotee of the Lord and great devotee of Srila Prabhupada. And it's my good fortune, my great good fortune, that I was able to have some association. So thank you. Vanchakopa Turubhyascha Kripasinabhya Vijaya Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namah.
Thank you, Manjari Mataji. So, since we are really going short of time, we have hardly another half an hour left. So, I'd like to request the speakers to cut short their speech between 3 to 5 minutes. So, now I will like to request our GBC of ISKCON Vrindavan, His Holiness Guru Prasad Swami Maharaj.
Panchakapatrubhyascha kripasindubhyeva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. So, the first time I met Tamal Krishna Maharaj was when I was assigned by my temple president, just getting out of the army, to collect his ticket to India. I could go with him. So I joined the Radha Damodar party for a few months to be able to collect the ticket. And it was January in Little Rock, Arkansas, snow, ice and snow on the ground. And so I went out on Sankirtan. They said, Tamal Krishna Maharaj is coming. So I said, oh, okay, wonderful. I had seen him, I'd seen pictures of him with horn-rimmed glasses. Nobody, nobody wore those, only science nerds or something wore that kind. I said, anybody who wears glasses like that must be far out. So anyway, it was freezing cold. I came back, I had we were distributing those big silver Krishna books. They weren't easy to distribute. And so we came back. I came back about 8 o'clock at night, my hands practically frozen, and the door to the bus opened, and there was Tamal Krishna Maharaj. So I offered obeisances in the snow. He looked at me. I thought he would say, oh, wonderful, you're back. He said, did you finish your quota? I said, well, I have 2 books left. The door is closed. No. And so so I went out, and somehow or another I managed to distribute those 2 books. And he came back. He opened the door. Did you did you make your quota? Yes, Maharaj. And then he smiled. He came in, gave me prasadam. And so he was very strict, but he was also very sweet, sweet and sour, or like chutney, So then, after many years, I met him a few times when I was working in Mexico. But my fondest memory was during the height of the Zonalacharya days. I got kicked out of Mexico because I had a different point of view. And so I decided I'm just going to distribute Prabhupada's books and, until all this blows over. And then one day, I was staying at my parents' house. I had a separate room. They had a separate little unit for me. And one day, out of the blue, my mother said, there's some Tamal, something like that, Tamal calling you. So I went, hello? Who is this? This is Tamal Krishna Maharaj. Oh, Jai Maharaj. How can I serve you? I said, how did you get this number? He said, Srila Prabhupada has empowered me, and so I never could figure out how he got the number, but somehow he did. And he said, so what are you doing? I explained, and he said, I agree. We have to change this Acharya system. Please come to Dallas. And I said, but Maharaj, you're like one of the biggest, one of those. He said, yeah, but that's going to change. He said, Mahabodhi is on his way. So I thought, well, if Mahabodhi's coming, it must be something serious. So I went, and we made changes. Like the next day, we took out the individual Vyasasan and made another Vyasasan everybody would sit on. We're very happy, and I got to spend 2 years working with him, and it was a nice experience. And but what I really enjoyed was every day we would take lunch, and he had incredible digestion, and I have an incredibly sensitive digestion. So it was really a battle, because he would say, you have to eat this first, and that, and that, and that. I said, Maharaj, I can't eat all that. I can only eat 2 things. No, you have to do it. So every day I would have to do exercises for like a half an hour after lunch just to be able to digest it. But we had many wonderful talks, and we would walk every day after lunch. We would walk in the morning. We would take lunch together, and finally I got pulled back into Latin America, and but anyway, that was you know, I had a wonderful. I never had a problem. He never yelled at me, you know, as he did some other people, as Basaki Prabhu said. No, he had a sweet relationship. I had a sweet and neutral relationship. You know, sometimes it was neutral, sometimes it was sweet. But the most wonderful thing that I experienced was the way he trained devotees. You know, I think that, you know, he was very selective, because he said, I don't want to waste any time. You know, I want people who will respond. And if they're not ready to respond, better they take initiation from someone else. One devotee, one person from Trinidad came, and he said, so I was with Maharaja, and he knew I had been working in Trinidad. So he said, can you tell Maharaja I want to take initiation from him? I said, yeah, okay. I went to him and he said, I don't initiate people like that. No, you initiate him. I said, Maharaj, you told me you didn't want me to initiate. Well, I changed my mind. No, and so, so he was very selective. But that selectivity allowed him to have very wonderful, capable disciples. And really, it was my pleasure to work with all those devotees in Dallas and in different places, because he was. He knew how to do things, and he knew what he wanted, and he knew how to get it. You know? And he learned that from Srila Prabhupada. And I learned so many things in our talks about how Srila Prabhupada would deal with so many situations. So anyway, those are some experiences I had. You know? I don't want to take too much time. And so I'm very sad. I was very sad to lose this association, as we all were. But, you know, Krishna has his plan. And when he sees that this devotee has done wonderful service for me, I want him to be with me. So what can you do? No, we must accept Krishna's plan. So thank you all very much. Srila Tamal Krishna Maharaj ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Nitai Gaur Premanandi.
Thank you, Guru Prasad Maharaj. So now I would like to request our temple president, His Grace Panchagoda Prabhu, please give an offering.
His Holiness Tamal Krishna Maharaj ki jai. Well, many of the devotees expressed beautiful stories about Maharaj. We were in the Govinda's Vaikuntha building in Miami. That was a hotel on the beach when many of the GBC meetings were taking place. So Tamal Krishna Maharaj and all the GBC would come to our Govinda's Vaikuntha building in Miami. And we were traveling with Sri Dayananda Maharaj in '83 for the Mayapur meetings, and Tamal would come in often to get the special mix that Sri Dayananda Maharaj had. We call them Rudies, you know, a little toast with a little ginger and lemon. At any rate, in the earlier days we were traveling a lot and running into Radha Damodar, but you can see that Srila Prabhupada, he saw Tamal Krishna Maharaj, as we heard from Basaki Prabhu, as his right arm. And if you see over the years, whenever Prabhupada was coming for big programs, especially in India, Tamal Krishna was right there next to Srila Prabhupada. And I remember reading his early books that Tamal wrote, and I always found that the devotees who can help Srila Prabhupada establish the Sankirtan mission are definitely empowered and had some, just you see how Rupa and Sanatana Goswami, they were engaged in apparently ordinary activities previous to coming back to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So I feel that Tamal Krishna Maharaj, and especially a lot of the early devotees who are pioneering, taking on big sacrifices, because it was very difficult You just imagine the austerities that Prabhupada underwent to come all alone, and then the early devotees, not much of a history or foundation for this society, but very much determined and very enthusiastic to help push on the mission. I've had several lunches here in Vrindavan when Tamal Maharaj was here, so I feel fortunate. That year, there was a big Mayapur festival. We all were there, and I remember the kirtans were very intense, and every evening they'd do hours of kirtan. The mood was very much for spreading the Sankirtan mission and hearing and chanting. So we all felt a big loss. I was here in Vrindavan when we heard the news, came back from Mayapur already. And definitely very powerful Sankirtan general and assistant to Srila Prabhupada to help spread the Sankirtan mission. He is very, very strict, great speaker, could kirtan, very charismatic, but at the same time, no nonsense. It was very, very much fixed. His Holiness Tamal Krishna Maharaja ki jai. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Panchagada Prabhu. So now I would like to request Kusa Mataji. Please come and give your offering. Kusa Mataji. She left. Okay, then Mahadevi Mataji, can you come forward? We have only a few minutes left. Yes.
Hare Krishna. All glories to Tamal Krishna Maharaj. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. So I first met Tamal Krishna Maharaj through hearing his glories through Vishnu John Maharaj. Back in 72, 73, their bus was parked in Shruti Rupa. Their family had a big home and they parked in like the backyard, and every night they were bringing Radha Damodar out to the pier. There was a kind of a famous little ceremony that even goes on today called sunset. When the sun was setting over the Atlantic Ocean, it would create a big orange glow and everyone would come out and sing or bring their breads, and there was Radha Damodar and Vishnu John Maharaj singing and the men distributing books, and so I was very attracted to that. And so I was with this band called The Simple Truth, but none of them were really interested. So every night I would be going to this booth that they had with Vishnu John Maharaj, and he was telling me all about Tamal Krishna Maharaj and about Srila Prabhupada and the Sankirtan movement. And almost 2 weeks every night going and hearing him preach to me, and my dog named Peas would come every day. And actually Vyasaki interviewed me during that time, and he put our little story in the Radha Damodar Vilas. So finally Vishnu John Maharaj, after feeding us so much blueberry halava, that was very famous then, blueberry halava and strawberry halava. They had this beautiful, if you know anything about America, Greyhound buses, very long buses, and they would gut out this bus and make a beautiful temple with Radha Damodar and a kitchen in the back that would produce so much prasadam to distribute wherever they would set up. So at one point, Vishnu John Maharaj was telling me that Srila Prabhupada and his godbrother Tamal Krishna, that their purpose in life was to distribute Krishna consciousness all over the world, and they wanted to visit every city in the United States, and that this farm, New Vrindavan, had newly been established, and they too were developing a Sankirtan party. So somehow or another he convinced me to hitchhike all the way to New Vrindavan, and within 2 weeks I was on this Sankirtan party. And I remember we were always competing with the Radha Damodar scores. And I was always so impressed how whenever I heard Tamal Krishna Maharaj's name, that yes, we heard so much about his strictness, but his love for Srila Prabhupada. He was undaunted, determined, so determined no matter what the adversities were. He was determined to distribute Srila Prabhupada's books and to spread Krishna consciousness. So that gave us, all of us on our party, we had 6 women living in a van going from city to city, and we would meet with a lot of adversities, but we would be so inspired by Tamal Krishna Maharaj and how determined he was to spread Krishna consciousness. And then jumping ahead to, I was there in Mayapur when Maharaj had his accident. And I remember all his Chinese devotees, they were all sitting in yoga position with their heads down. There were just rows and rows and rows of these Chinese devotees sitting in front of Lord Nrsingadev. And they sat there all day long chanting and chanting and chanting. And it was a sad day. And prior to that, oh yeah, I forgot that these beautiful, Maharaj had arranged all these kirtans to go on in his room in the Lotus building. So there was many of us who had been invited to come, and then at a certain point the door had to be closed because it was packed, and people were waiting outside to hear the kirtan. And beautiful, beautiful kirtans. Maharaj is, we always heard about how heavy he was, and I'll tell you a little story with one of my god sisters. But when it was kirtan time, he was so absorbed in hearing and chanting the holy name, and I was very inspired by just watching him. And whenever I would see a picture of him or hear about his activities, immediately you just think of Srila Prabhupada and how much Srila Prabhupada loved him and trusted him. And I remember praying that I hope that I could maybe develop even a drop of that kind of dedication to Srila Prabhupada's mission. So one of my dear god sisters, Prabhupada's disciple, Kodashamani Prabhu, she's a senior yoga teacher for, most of us have heard of BKS Iyengar, who left his body recently. And she wanted to learn how to cook. She wanted to learn how to cook a thali so that when Iyengar's yoga swamis came from all over India, that she could show how well that Prabhupada had taught the science of cooking. So she learned this from Tamal Krishna Maharaj, but she told me in confidence that it was very, very difficult because Maharaj was so heavy, and every day she had to meet with him for a month, and every day she would come out of the kitchen crying because he would chastise her over this or that. But at the end of the month of training, she had learned very, very carefully, scientifically, how to make the rice, how to make the dal, how to make the sabji. So when she was invited to, I believe it was his 83rd birthday, Iyengar's birthday, he invited her to cook for all this big assembly of yogis who had come from all over India, and everybody was so impressed with her cooking. And so he got on the microphone and said, "This is a disciple of His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, and she has learned this cooking from one of his very dear disciples, His Holiness Tamal Krishna Maharaj." So she felt like all the austerities that she had endured during that time was worth it to hear Prabhupada's name glorified and Tamal Krishna Maharaj's name glorified. And and their expertise. And I was just reading today that Tamal Krishna Maharaj said something about eating prasadam, and then Prabhupada corrected him and said, no, we're not eating prasadam, we're honoring prasadam. So we hear that a lot, honoring prasadam, but it's nice to hear that again. So I feel very grateful to all the great stalwart warriors of Prabhupada in this movement. I'm just a little spider trying to do my little part. But this particular picture of Prabhupada sitting under the Tamal tree, of course we know during this time he was not so healthy, and Maharaj standing there. So many times when I sit under the Tamal tree or see the Tamal tree, I think of Prabhupada sitting there, and Tamal Krishna Maharaj so attentive to every single detail. In the last few months that Prabhupada was with us, it's described that Tamal Krishna Maharaj hardly ate or slept because he was up all night. Sometimes Prabhupada couldn't sleep, and so Maharaj was right there to take care of him, and he would carry him to the bathroom, as well as our dear godbrother Abhiram when Prabhupada would get weak. So this kind of a relationship that Srila Prabhupada had with Tamal Krishna Maharaj is not ordinary. Obviously, Tamal Krishna Maharaj came into this world and came into Prabhupada's mission to serve in such an intimate way. So thank you, Tamal Krishna Maharaj, for setting such an amazing, devotional, dedicated example to serving Srila Prabhupada in his mission. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Mahadevi Mataji. So now I'd like to request Sutagati Prabhu, please give your offering.
Hare Krishna, Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pastaya Bhutale Srimad Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravana Pachani Nirvisesa Sanyavari Paskachate Satarni. I heard Diva Shakti's class this morning. She gave very nice information. So I know there's only a few minutes left, and Tamal Krishna Maharaj, he was very much punctual. Punctuality was also one of his traits, so I'll just take a few minutes. I first met him in December of 1972 in Mumbai. Prabhupada was staying at Seaface Park, whatever it's called there, at Kartikeya's place. And over 2 years, he was Prabhupada's secretary at different times, and I guess, as Mataji said, I had kind of a neutral relationship with Maharaj. He was Prabhupada's secretary, I was his servant, and I always kept my distance from many managerial things. But one of the first things I remember with Maharaj was there, he was GBC in India for years. So when Prabhupada arrived there in Mumbai, I was used to, wherever Prabhupada went, I was always right next to him. If he was in the car, I sat next to him. Walking, I walked next to him. So we were leaving, it was on the second floor of Kartikeya's place, a tiny little elevator. You could barely fit 2 people inside. So I remember the first time pushing the button, it was a very slow elevator, it came up to the top and the doors open. So I helped Prabhupada in. And of course I was thinking, I'm going to go in, Prabhupada's servant, and Tamal looked at me and he just, so that was my first meeting with Maharaj. So he got in the elevator with Prabhupada and doors shut and it started going down, so I ran downstairs. 2 flights of stairs, 3 flights of stairs, and when the elevator doors opened up, Tamal looked and he saw me standing there, already down there. And he looked at Prabhupada and he smiled. Prabhupada, Shuddha Kirti's already here. Prabhupada just smiled. He said, Kirti means expert. But I learned from Maharaj right away what my position was, what his position was. He let me know that very quickly. And he could ask Prabhupada anything. Something I didn't do very often was ask questions, but Maharaj could ask questions and he would say things, he would converse with Prabhupada. In Calcutta, came into the room, because in Calcutta it was difficult. Prabhupada's sister would cook. She would cook a lot. So the devotees would have the ISKCON prasadam, and then they would have Pishima's prasadam, which of course had the distinct taste of mustard oil. One afternoon, Maharaj went in, Tamal Krishna Maharaj went into the room, and Prabhupada, don't you say that oil's for the outside of the body and ghee is for the inside of the body? And Prabhupada said, yes, that's right. He said, well, here, he said, everything they cook, they're cooking in mustard oil. Prabhupada said, oh, it's very tasty. And another time was about prasadam. Maharaj, Tamal Krishna Maharaj, when he was there, of course, temples all around the world, there were very distinct types of prasadam being cooked. And standard could vary greatly from one place to the other. But one thing that was consistent was what was being cooked for Srila Prabhupada. And of course, he showed me how to use his cooker. For 3 days, he showed me every day what to do with the cooker, how to use it. And I would cook like that. And it was simple. Rice, chapatis, dal, maybe 3 sabjis, mildly spiced. So Tamal Krishna Maharaj, of course, he would take the remnants from the cooker. Prabhupada's remnants redistributed, but you could cook enough for 2-3 people in the cooker, so there was always leftovers in the cooker. And that was in Mayapur. So he was eating like that every day. Prabhupada was there for a month. And he went into Prabhupada's room, I was there, and he said, Srila Prabhupada, he said, Sruta Kirti, he's expert cook. And I have to say that was one of the nicest things Maharaj said about me. And Prabhupada kind of smiled. He said, yes, he cooks nice American prasadam. So. And sometimes I wasn't there when Prabhupada would ring the bell. And that was the nicest thing Tamal Krishna said once. Because if I wasn't there, then the secretary would answer. Prabhupada's ringing his bell right here, Krishna Balaram in his rooms. So I don't know where I was, but Prabhupada rang, and if he didn't answer it, he'd start ringing the bell. So finally Tamal went in. And of course, if anyone else went in, Prabhupada would say, where's Sruta Kirti? Where's my servant? And so. And Tamal came up to me later, he said, Prabhupada's going to be in the spiritual world ringing the bell, saying, where is Sruta Kirti? So I hope Maharaj's words ring true. He was certainly a stalwart servant of Srila Prabhupada and did so much, ultimately following Prabhupada's orders, whatever they were, and sometimes they were very difficult orders. Prabhupada only gave difficult orders to those who were prepared to follow them. And just like sending him to China, that was a very difficult task. And he would only ask, wasn't, as Daiva Shakti said, a punishment. It was actually a great blessing knowing he was a person that could do something there. It wasn't to just get rid of him. He knew it would take someone of his caliber to be able to spread Krishna consciousness. So all glories to Tamal Krishna Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Satarupa Prabhu. So now almost time is up, so last 2 speakers. So I would like to request His Holiness Prabodhananda Saraswati Swami Maharaj.
अज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरुवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं जनभूतले स्वयं रूपकदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकम्। वञ्चाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपासिन्धुभ्येव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। श्रीकृष्णचैतन्य प्रभुनित्यानन्द श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौरभक्तवृन्द। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे. So I'll speak Hindi or English? English.
Hindi.
Hindi. Okay. Hindi or English? Okay. So I did not have any personal association with Maharaj, but I heard his glories from his Prabhupada disciples and his own disciples like Bhakti Narayan Maharaj. And the Tamal today we are hearing also in Devashakti Mataji lectures that he was the right hand person of Srila Prabhupada. And he is very intimate to Prabhupada. Even most difficult tasks he could perform for Prabhupada. We see in Mayapur, for land, many Prabhupada sent so many people to get a land in Mayapur, but no one was successful. Finally, he sent Tamal Maharaja and he did the job. He told, now Prabhupada land is here, 20 acres land, and so he is very dear to Srila Prabhupada and very close to Prabhupada, and he is very faithful for Prabhupada. But he is also he learned, he was personally trained up by Srila Prabhupada, and he could know what his disciples were thinking within about him. One time I had an experience, Maharaj told Bhakti Narayan Maharaj how he himself and another disciple they are thinking that Maharaj has a kavach in his neck. They are thinking why Maharaj is wearing this kavach. So that they could not find what is the reason, what is this kavach or some, what is this. Then one day Maharaj called both of them, then he opened it and saw that this is the teeth of Prabhupada's teeth. He was keeping it inside. He is not keeping any kavach, he is not wearing kavach, but this Prabhupada's teeth. Out of love for Prabhupada, he is keeping this Prabhupada teeth in his neck. And he also whatever he learned from Prabhupada, he also teaches his disciples. One time I heard from Maharaj that Maharaj came one time, then they purchased very nice bed sheet from market. Just new bed sheet they are putting on the bed. Then Prabhupada, when Maharaj came, Tamal Maharaj came, then he asked this about this bed sheet. He told us it's a new bed sheet. Then Maharaj chastised them. You first wash it and dry it, then you use it for Krishna or your spiritual master. So in this way, we see Maharaj is very particular, very strict. One time I see he entered for Darshanarti to our Krishna Balaram temple, on this Gonita side. Then he saw the clock. The clock was not working properly. It was about maybe 10, 12 minutes, 7, 8 minutes late. Maharaj told, who is the temple commander? Why this? He became very angry. It's just why this clock is so late. What type of management is? So like this we see he learned from Prabhupada. And Prabhupada, he also he is teaching in the same line in the Prabhupada's teaching, and he is very intelligent and his classes are very influential. I have heard when he was giving classes in our temple, the classroom was completely full, and he gives very nice classes. So in this way we can see Maharaj is so close to Srila Prabhupada, and how he dedicated to Srila Prabhupada. He did everything, and he could sacrifice everything for Prabhupada. That is the mood of a disciple. So we have to learn these things from him. And I read particularly his books about Prabhupada's last pastimes. This is very nicely explained in that book, how Prabhupada left this world. And he and Bhakti Charu Maharaj, they get the opportunity to serve Srila Prabhupada so closely. How they went to Rishikesh and how they returned from Rishikesh to Vrindavan and these pastimes. So Prabhupada selected him to give him so much opportunity to serve him personally. And so we have to learn how to serve as a disciple to our spiritual master from his personal examples. So today is Appearance Day, Vyas Puja Day, so we are very today appearance? Today is disappearance. Anyhow, this disappearance, appearance is the same thing for a Vaishnava. He is a Vaishnava, as Bhakti Thakur told that he is a seal who thinks that Vaishnavas die. He is always living with us and still he guiding and spreading the mission. His Holiness Tamal Krishna Goswami Maharaj ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhupada Swami Maharaj. So now I would like to request His Grace Mukunda Tat Prabhu, our head pujari.
Hare Krishna. Gurave Gaura Chandraya Radhikaya Tadalaya Krishnaya Krishna Bhaktaya Tad Bhaktaya Namo Namaha. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So we are very fortunate to be here in Vrindavan Dham by Prabhupada's mercy and by the mercy of his disciples. And today, Disappearance Day of His Holiness Tamal Krishna Goswami Maharaj, and also the associates of Mahaprabhu, Rasikananda Prabhu and Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj. So, as we have heard from Prabhupada's disciples and read also the biography of Prabhupada, so we could understand that His Holiness was very, very dear to Srila Prabhupada, very intimate disciple of Srila Prabhupada, and adopting the mood of Srila Prabhupada. So I had the good fortune of meeting him a few times and see his wonderful qualities. Just like Prabhupada said in deity worship or in general, that one must be very punctual. Cleanliness and punctuality are very important in deity worship. So His Holiness also was very punctual, he was very clean, and I had the good fortune of meeting him a few times and having a wonderful exchange with him. First time I was going to Mayapur for the festival in March 1981. So on the way we stopped with some Sankirtan devotees from Vrindavan. We stopped at Albert Road in the ISKCON temple, and so His Holiness was there and some other sannyasis, and they were having some discussion, and it was a little warm, so they needed somebody to fan the devotees. So they asked different devotees, and then I was around there, so they asked me also to fan His Holiness and other senior devotees. And so first time I met and first exchange was there. He was looking at me how I was fanning, and then he was slightly chastising me. It's okay, but you have to do better. You have to learn how to fan properly. And then he called one other devotee to show me how to fan properly as he wanted. And so that was my first meeting. And then afterwards, I saw him second time. I went for a visit to New York. I was 3 years in India, but my health was no good, so I was in Switzerland for a little while, and then I went for Rath Yatra, famous Rath Yatra in New York. And so His Holiness was also there, so I met him. And later on, actually he was staying for some time in New York, and so he had small Radha Krishna deities, and he was taking care of the small Radha Krishna deities. And he needed somebody to help in the seva. So at that time I was serving the deities in the temple, in Radha Govinda temple. And so then they asked me to go and see Maharaj and help in whatever way he wanted for serving his deities. And so then at that time, so I had the opportunity to serve his personal deities, which he had at this time. Who are the deities now, by the way? Maharaj, he had small deities. Shankar Prabhu, okay, yeah. So beautiful small deities. And at that time we had it was a wonderful exchange, and actually I was doing as he wanted, and so he was very kind to me and giving me Mahaprasad and speaking nicely to me and asking what I'm doing. So I explained I'm pujari here, and so he was pleased. So, and every day he used to come for darshan, and so was actually the head pujari was there, Ramabhadra, at that time, who later became president of the temple also. So he was serving the big deities mostly, and I was serving the small deities. And so every day Maharaj came for darshan, and every day he called Ramabhadra and chastised him heavily. And no, it is what you did, the decoration was okay, but this was not good, that was not good. And then every day Ramabhadra, he was like almost devastated, and he was telling me, it's so heavy, this Maharaj. But then he appreciated also, and he said, but I'm learning a lot from his chastisement. So we could see that Maharaj, so he was expert in deity worship, so he had his personal deities, but in regards to the deities in the temple, he gave valuable advice to Ramabhadra Prabhu in regards to the color combination of the dress and the cloth, and the jewelry should be matching, and where to put the flowers in the turban or around Radharani. So it was quite impressive and wonderful. So, and as we know, the spiritual master is heavy like a thunderbolt and soft like a rose. So we have heard of Prabhupada also, it was like that. But mostly the spiritual master is soft like a rose. So in his case, he was soft like a rose many times, but many times he was very heavy. And we have heard from many devotees. And so fortunately, only the first time I met, he slightly chastised me, but afterwards he was always very soft with me and like a rose. So very wonderful. So that was a nice experience, and so I had the opportunity to be in his association, to learn from him and get his mercy. And then later on I met him when I came back to Vrindavan. And so he was, because we knew each other by his mercy from New York, so he was very kind and encouraging in some difficult times for me. And then, so I was very impressed by his classes. So he was extremely intelligent. So we can say sadbuddhi, transcendental intelligence was there. In regards to, of course, the seva, he was doing, or in regards to deity worship, or in regards to managing. He was also expert manager, that we could see also. And he was an excellent speaker. His classes were fabulous. He was giving classes here in Vrindavan. Actually, 1987, the VIC started. The first, Kartik 1987, the VIC started here in Sri Vrindavan Dham, and actually the first practically very much organized teaching. So he was there, he was one of the teachers, and other Giriraj Maharaj was there giving some classes, and throughout the month they were giving class, and very enlivening classes. So it was a very wonderful time. And so he was expert in cooking, and he expertly then also taught his disciples. So he had one devotee, Bengali devotee, Gopal Raj. He's still here in Vrindavan, or I haven't seen him so often. So he was trained personally by Maharaj, and he was excellent cook. And so we had the opportunity a few times to actually, when Gopal Raj cooked for Maharaj, and then we had the opportunity, because he was cooking for Maharaj and some other proper disciples, and then usually there was always a little bit left over there, and then I had a good relationship with Gopal Raj also, so we had the opportunity to taste wonderful prasadam. So, and everything had to be first class, on time, and properly done. So I had many wonderful experiences in personal exchange with him, and also seeing how he was expertly teaching the devotees. And whenever I saw him with devotees, and of course we had heard also, he was Prabhupada's right-hand man, or he was practically always the most important person, the leader. He was the leader when the devotees were there, and so to say, he was the main person saying how to do the things, or so that was also my realization, and I saw personally when they were coming together discussing something, and it was a kind of person who was then giving the final word. And I remember also there was a famous class he was giving, I believe it was in Fiji, Maharaj. Is Fiji a famous class because there are many people out there with their different philosophies, Mayavadis and worshippers of the demigods, and this God is supreme or that God is supreme, and then so he was giving a class there, and he had a display was there of all the different personalities, but then he was firmly establishing that Krishna is the supreme personality of Godhead. According to the Bhagavatam also, etecham sakalapam sam Krishnastu Bhagavan Sayam. And he was very nicely explaining and defeating all the other conceptions which were presented obviously at that time and in Fiji. So it was very impressive. It was actually going around amongst the devotees, so that was also showing that he's expert in preaching to the devotees and to the common people, and in this way also actually making many devotees. So I had good impressions, and fortunately a good relationship, of course always as a junior, and many times he was there with his god brothers, and I had the opportunity also sometimes to come for some seva. But then he also put me in place to show that I'm just a junior devotee. But always a wonderful relationship was there by his mercy. So I pray that I may be able to become more and more also absorbed in the service to Srila Prabhupada, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Sri Radha Krishna. His Holiness Tamal Krishna Goswami ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Muknadat Prabhuji. So almost time is running out. So we are coming to the last speaker of the day today. So I'd like to request His Grace Ishwar Prabhu, please.
Hare Krishna. Gurabe Gurachandra Yaradika Tadalaye Krishna Ya Krishna Bhaktayata Bhaktaya Namo Nama Vanchaka Patru Vyascha Kripasini Vicha Paritana Pavana Bhivashna Namo Nama Slatama Krishna Maharaj ki, Srila Prabhupada ki. So lots of wonderful speakers have spoken about His Holiness Tamal Krishna Maharaj. My memory of Maharaj, of course, the first time I met him personally was 1984. This was in New York, Rath Yatra, and then in New Vrindavan. But prior to that, in the late 70s, when Maharaj released, I think it was his first book, called The Servant of the Servant. And that time he had basically relating his, how he joined Prabhupada, and it was because he was such an exceptional personality. When he joined, immediately Prabhupada recognized him as not just an ordinary devotee. Prabhupada immediately took very exceptional of Tamal Krishna Maharaj, and immediately Prabhupada called that, okay, he's going to have a prasad with him, with Prabhupada. So Prabhupada had devotee prepare prasad and called Tamal Krishna Maharaj to come and take prasad with him. So one of the things Maharaj was relating was when he was about to be taking prasad, and he asked Prabhupada that what should he take first? How should the prasad be taken? And the Prabhupada replied that, there is no hard and fast rule for taking prasadam. That was Prabhupada's reply. So he said, no hard and fast rule. So, as I think Mukunda Maharaj Prabhu was saying, that Tamal Krishna Maharaj was always the leader in everything. And he was there until the very, very end, when Srila Prabhupada left the planet in 1977. When Srila Prabhupada was preparing his will, it was always Tamal Krishna Maharaj who was preparing the will for Prabhupada. And so he was one of Prabhupada's main general. When you have an army, in the army you need commandant, you need generals. And so Tamal Krishna Maharaj was one of the main commander. So many of us who joined in the late 70s and early 80s, we always have a very deep appreciation of Maharaj. He's very, very, very sharp intelligence, very, very keen. And I remember when that video of in Fiji was released, like God, the God and Incarnation, many of those Fiji programs. So in every Sunday lectures and every Sunday program, we always, after the Sunday feast, after Prasad, we will always play those videos of Maharaj giving lectures in Fiji. And it was always very, very, educational. So, and anyway, the best way to know more about Maharaj is to read some of his books and also to watch those videos, those early videos in ITV video. It was 78, 79, 80. That's very, very nice video of Maharaj, giving lectures, And of course, I remember Maharaj would say, because in Fiji people that time, they worship so many demigods, so which means they don't know who is God, who is the Supreme. And then Maharaj will say that, okay, I give everyone here a challenge. You take up this chanting Hare Krishna mantra, and if within 3 months you don't see any change in your life, I will give you $10,000 in cash. So Maharaj will say this. Practically 3 or 4 different lectures Maharaj said that. So if within 3 months you take up this chant of Hare Krishna mantra, you don't see any change in your life, I will give you $10,000 in cash. So I don't know if anybody has ever, come forward, Anyway, thank you very much. So it's always a good opportunity. I was there in 2002 when Maharaj passed away in Mayapur. So that time it was just after Mangalati, Sridhar Maharaj, he announced that, Tamal Maharaj just had an accident. He was on his way to Delhi because he was going to London. So, and he said, okay, all devotees should pray. This was just after Mangalati. And then just by the end of Tulsi Puja, they make an announcement that now Maharaj has left. He had left the planet. So it was like a very big shock to all the devotees. Very, very big shock. And then, of course, the Maharaj, his body was brought to Mayapur, and then it was a big, huge, it was like a huge occasion, very solemn occasion, when Maharaj was finally put into Samadhi. So thank you very much. Srila Tamal Krishna Maharaj ki, Srila Prabhupada ki, Hare Krishna.
So with this, we are ending this today's glorification of His Holiness Tamal Krishna Goswami. So now there will be Puspanjali followed by Arati. So everybody is requested, Matajis and Prabhujis, to come forward, and flowers will come to you. And then Prasadam will be for Prabhupada disciples and senior devotees. It will be inside, and for all other devotees it will be here in the hall. So you can come forward for the